If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new album in the description. Alright, let's talk about Bruno Mars, Anderson .Paak, Silk Sonic, the duo that has been making some moves, making some waves over the past couple of months with their first two singles, Leave the Door Open, which was actually quite a big song, quite a hit actually, in the first half of the year, and then also with their latest single, Skate, which served as the second, lead single to this album that we're gonna get, because they are dropping an album. Everybody probably knows that. I didn't like Skate as much. We're gonna talk about that today, but also the main focus I want to go into today is the release date of their new album, An Evening with Silk Sonic, because that is what their album is titled. That's what they've been teasing it as. That's also what the cover arts for the two singles so far have been teasing at. That's probably also going to be the cover for the album. So let's talk about it, what they recently said in a Rolling Stone interview that they did, because they were the cover for the latest Rolling Stone issue. In there, they talked about their new album, also including the release date of it, and they said some interesting stuff. So for one thing, Anderson .Paak said that they still wanted to let each song breathe a bit, and Bruno also said that they don't want to be binge watched, or he said, I don't want to be binge watched, which we're gonna get into what I think that means, but let's get their full take on this first. So Bruno also went on to say, we've got the bones of most of the album, so it's really about touching up parts that need a little more grease. We're not there. We were there. We had some moments in the danger zone. I think we put the pressure on ourselves by putting out Leave the Door Open. But a deadline is important, because at some point you gotta say this is it. Otherwise, you're gonna work it till you hate it. Then they also talked about their, artistic relationship that started back during the 24K Magic Tour that Anderson .Paak accompanied Bruno on, and they talked about getting to the studio. And one thing that I loved was that they said, but it's all from the heart, because we're writing from our experiences, from our relationships. It's rare that two men can come together and talk about love, and I think there is really some truth to this. I mean, neither of them is a stranger to doing this, but come on, man, both of them getting together and doing it, collectively on a record, I think is still something more special, and I like that, and I think it's going to be very personal to see what they come up with on the album. But let's go back to the release date, because that is obviously what the interesting news is in this article. Now, of course, it's a shame that they said it's not going to drop until next year, but really what's interesting is to see their reasoning behind this. What I find interesting is that Bruno said, we're not there, but we were there. So at some point, they had a version of the album, or almost a completed version of the album, that they thought was worth giving out to the public, but then they never did, because, maybe some other stuff came up that they wanted to change, and as they said, they have some, parts they need to touch up, and they need a little bit more grease, as Bruno put it, which I thought was very funny. He said they got the bones of most of the album, so I'm guessing they have, some sort of idea of what the track list is going to look like, what the individual tracks are going to sound like. But it's just those little things, maybe a feature missing there, maybe some mixing there, maybe some more harmonies and vocal mixing there. Those little things that I think they want to take some more time with it. Now, another thing that I found very interesting is how Bruno talked about not wanting to be binge watched. And I'm not quite sure what this means. I have some thoughts on this. My first one is that, we're in a day and age where artists are putting out massive amounts of music. It doesn't take an artist, 5 years anymore to release another album, but rather just a couple of months. And when you look at that development, Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak were never really artists that followed in the same fashion. Of course, Bruno had the period of time in his career, especially during the early to mid 2010s, where he did release a lot of music, but it was never like that flooding the market strategy that we're so used to in hip-hop nowadays. Of course, hip-hop and pop R&B are still two different, sides of music, but you can't deny that Anderson .Paak is truly been really integrated into hip-hop, especially also for his style that he's using. Anyway, let's talk about what Bruno could also mean by this. Now, binge watching, to me, as the first thought that I got is when I got, for example, Culture 3, the Migos. it felt like you just had to get through the whole album. There's a bunch of songs that you just don't really like, but you just get through it. And that's how I feel like maybe Bruno wants this to be interpreted, that he doesn't want the album to be like, oh, they dropped a single, they dropped another single, now we got the album, and then 2 weeks after it, it's already forgotten about. They want this whole thing to be bigger than that. They don't want people to forget about it, fast after it comes out. So I'm guessing this is what he means by this, but also I could be wrong. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, because I think that's a truly interesting comment that, might be interpreted differently. So let me know what you think about this. Anyway, so we're getting it next year. Of course, we all thought we were going to get it sooner than that. We got Leave the Door Open in March. So at that point, everybody, already thought it was going to drop during the summer. That's kind of what everybody thought, as we are going outside again, partying, that they wanted to capitalize off of that and be the soundtrack for the summer, which I think both of them could have done really well. I think they're both artists that can capture that feeling very well. But I mean, face the truth, CLB was also supposed to do the same thing with Drake, and he didn't do it. So we were really missing like a summer soundtrack, and both of them could have easily done that and performed really well. But anyway, we're getting it next year. I still think it's gonna be during the summer. That's just what the whole vibe of the first two singles was. I didn't like Skate as much. It sounded a lot like Leave the Door Open. I did like that they used the same drum break at the beginning of the track as they did for Leave the Door Open. That kind of suggests a more, cohesive album track list, where each track is somehow connected to the rest of the tracks with the same opening, the same intro. I hope, of course, that that's not going to be used on all of the tracks, because that would just be kind of weird. But I did like that they're somehow connected. Didn't like Skate as much because I thought it was, as I said, kind of a cheaper version of Leave the Door Open, while Leave the Door Open was really like a great track where both of them really performed at their best, showed their synergy and chemistry together. And I hope that we're going to see more of that on the final record. I hope they're going for, different styles other than just this like chill R&B vibe that they've previewed on the first two tracks. I hope that they can maybe switch it up, do some even lighter stuff, do some darker stuff. But I do have faith in this project. I think it's going to be a really interesting collab and a big collab. I think a lot of people care about this. A lot of people have been hyped up ever since Leave the Door Open dropped. So I have my hopes up high for this. I think that this could really be an interesting project that, all genres from Bruno Mars's pop R&B to then Anderson .Paak's crossover with R&B and hip hop can benefit from. So that's my thoughts on this. Now I want to know what you think about this. Are you excited for an evening with Silk Sonic? What did you think of the latest single Skate? What did you think of the original single Leave the Door Open? How do you feel about them delaying it now a year further into the future, or half a year? We don't really know when exactly next year it's dropping, but still it's delayed because apparently they wanted to release it at an earlier point. Anyway, let me hear your thoughts in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media and blog down in the description. It really helps me out. Until the next one, y'all have an incredible day, and y'all take care.